Hi and welcome. We're going to be talking a bit about writing your business plan because planning in business is one of those things you don't do once. It's a process that you need to be engaged with all the time. Now, why do we need a plan when we're running our business? Simple, because if you think about it, we all carry this device in our pockets, which is a phone with a GPS on it. And the GPS is one of the most brilliant things because all you need to do is put the destination into the GPS and it calculates the directions that you need to take. So it creates the plan based on you being clear on where you want to go. Now, how does that work in business? Simple. Your first thing you need to do in business is understand what you're building or what your destination is. Now, here's a question you might want to write down or you might want to ponder. How will my business look when it's finished? Because for most people, they can't answer that question. They have no concept of what it's going to be like when it's finished. They're more worried about getting started or just getting out of chaos. So reality is, if we don't begin with an end in mind, right, we're probably not going to have a very accurate plan. And this is one of the problems a lot of people have with the planning process. So when we think about it, there are some steps, and I'm going to run you through them pretty quickly just so you understand the principles before we get into the planning detail. So beginning with an end in mind means having a bit of a plan, or more importantly, a planning process. Now, the planning process needs to incorporate things like goals, and I'm going to suggest you start with the end in mind, which is what's the business going to look like when it's finished. Now, if that's hard for you to answer, now when I say finished, it could be one of multiple things. It could be that you sell the business. It could be that the business runs under management, or it could be what 80% of businesses do in Australia is it could be when you just close the doors. Now, that's not a bad thing if that's the decision that you want to make in terms of where you want to take your business to. Now, if you can't think to what it's going to look like when it's finished, you probably need to take a step back from that and think in terms of either 10 years down the track or 5 years down the track. Now, the reason we choose a spot so far into the future is it removes any of the anchors that you have with you right now. Because if we talk about 90-day or 12-month goals, normally what people think about is, well, with the current market or with the people I have employed now or with the size of my premises, this is all I can do. When we go 5 or 10 years, we're moving into the future a bit, which gives you a bit more dynamics. So the planning process requires you to understand a bit about destination, where you're going, and then a little bit about how you're going to get there, so the navigation of it. So then we move to the next phase of this process, which is once we have our plan in place, we can start talking about productivity. Now, what does productivity mean? Well, it relates to time management. Now, think about time. We don't manage time, we manage activities. And when we talk about productivity, that's about making sure we're doing the right things. Now, I don't believe you can be productive unless you know where you're going. So having your goals in place before you start thinking about how you're using your time is pretty critical to becoming more effective or more efficient with your time. Now, the next layer of this is pretty simple because if we start talking about planning and productivity, there's one rule in business, and the rule is this: you need to know your numbers. Now, why do we need to know our numbers? It's simple, because the numbers don't lie, right? They tell us where we're going, where we need to go, and whether we're on track, whether we're actually making a profit or not. Now, if we're measuring our numbers, we can start to see whether our productivity is effective and whether our planning is taking us in the right direction. Now, the last step in this base of the platform is this one. Right. You need to be providing a fantastic service. Now, when I talk about service, I don't mean just doing a good job. I mean making sure that you're retaining clients, which means that we've got lifetime value, and also you're getting referrals within your business. Now, back to the planning principle, we've got 4 steps here, and really when we talk about these 4 steps, we're just talking about getting out of chaos and moving into control. So they're the 4 foundations that we need to be thinking about primarily in our plan. Now, if we do this right, we can move to the next stage of growth. And the next stage of growth is fairly straightforward. If we get this right, we've plugged all the holes, which means the bucket's not leaking anymore and we can start actually making some profit and we can start actually having control over our lives. But we are limited to how big we can grow a business just doing this because we're going to run out of capacity to sort of deliver. And we're going to end up in a situation where we're just too busy. So what do we do next? We need to start thinking in terms of how we get more business. Now, when I mention marketing to people, often if they're self-employed, they're terrified of marketing because they're busy already. What's the point in marketing when I'm flat out? But we want to think about marketing not just from the point of view of generating more leads, we want to think about marketing from the point of view of getting out of a price competitive market. What that means is that you might not increase the number of clients you have, but you can charge more or you can get premium clients if you market effectively. Because there's two outputs from marketing. Number one is getting more leads, but number two is improving the quality of your brand, which means people are willing to pay more. Now we need to plan for all of this so that we can do it strategically rather than just being in a knee-jerk reactive situation. Now I'll take you through the next few phases and then we'll go through the detail of how this is all going to fall into a plan. So once we've got our marketing right, then we're going to get busy and we're going to be profitable, which is really cool, right? Because being busy and profitable means you're starting to see some cash come into the bank account. So the next hurdle that we're going to have to overcome is how do we actually improve our capacity as a business when we've got some great marketing, great service, and all of this is stacking up down here. And this is really about creating really good systems. Now you'll notice that I put systems next. Some of you might have guessed that we don't need systems, we just need good people. But I'll suggest that you can't get good people without good systems. So what we're going to do is we're going to build our team after we build our system. And the idea there is to start building a team in a profitable environment within the business. Now, if we do this section right, what happens up here is this is really where the growth occurs, okay? So the first part of our business plan is really about just getting control back of our time, getting control back of our cash flow, and getting control back of our profitability. The second part of our business plan is about how do we scale what we already have. And if we do this effectively, we're going to grow a successful business. Now, we'll know it's successful because the foundations are strong. And then when it comes to this level up here, not only are we looking for team, we're looking for a team that provides synergy. And synergy, synchronized energy, is when the team is building the business for me. So this is what we call the business master plan. This is the format that you need to be thinking about. And the question is, if you had to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 for each one of these, which is the areas that you'll be focusing on most? So this is the base, and now we're going to talk about how we actually turn this into a plan.